Ever put money down at the track?
Yeah.
You know, watching those odds change so fast on the board,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
almost like a stock ticker going crazy.
Definitely.
Well, today we are diving deep into the world of racetrack operators. These are the people who make sure that whole betting system runs smoothly. We got a stack of info here from RoleCatcher. And you know what? It's way more technical than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it really is. It's not just about loving horses or anything. I mean, you'd be surprised. RoleCatcher found like 80% of the jobs they looked at. They wanted people with like IT skills or even programming. It's a pretty high-tech world behind the scenes, you know?
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. A hidden career gem. So give me the breakdown. What's the main technology these racetrack operators need to know?
It all comes down to something called the tote system, which is really just a fancy way to say pari-mutuel betting. Imagine like a giant calculator, but it's all connected. It takes everyone's bets, figures out the odds based on how much is on each horse, then it calculates all the payouts. It's going nonstop, especially on the big race days.
So basically, it sounds like a data entry nightmare,
Hmm.
except with way higher stakes if you mess up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher really stressed how important accuracy is in this job. Like one little typo could mean someone loses a ton of money. So these guys need serious focus. And they don't just enter data. They make reports, manage those big tote boards we see. They even handle stuff like the morning line odds, those early predictions. And let's not forget the pick six, where you got to pick the winner of 6 races in a row.
Whoa, pick six.
Yeah. That sounds super intense for the bettors and the operator, making sure it's all right. But it's not all just crunching numbers in an office somewhere, right? RoleCatcher mentioned working with actual equipment, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're like the tech support for the whole betting operation.
Mm.
Imagine a packed race day, the tote board goes down, everyone's looking at you. You got to fix that thing fast.
Yeah.
Making sure the network's talking to everything, the databases are secure.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about pressure.
No kidding, man. Like an air traffic controller, but for bets. You'd need nerves of steel for that. So what kind of person does well in that kind of job? Did RoleCatcher say anything about a typical career path? You know, they actually had a whole outline, which I found interesting. You might start by helping the senior operators, maybe doing some data entry or simple tech issues. But as you get more experience, you get more responsibility. You could end up leading a team, doing big tech upgrades, maybe even be in charge of the whole tote system for a track. So you can really move up in this field, but what does that actually look like? Like, how many years of experience do you need? Are there any certifications? What did RoleCatcher say about all that?
Well, they actually talked about soft skills almost as much as the technical stuff, especially for those higher level jobs. Think about it. Even though you're deep in the tech side, you're still part of a team.
Right.
Being able to explain a problem to someone,
Yeah.
or like explain some complex system to someone who doesn't get tech. Those are really important skills in this world. Yeah, that makes sense. I bet a broken tote board needs a different explanation than when my home Wi-Fi goes out, even though both are annoying when they happen. Speaking of which, did RoleCatcher go into detail about the day-to-day work?
Oh, yeah, they had a whole list of typical tasks. Data entry is obviously a big one, no surprise there. Every single bet, from the simplest ones to those crazy trifecta bets, you know, where they have to pick the top 3 horses in order, all that goes into the system. And it's not just typing fast either. RoleCatcher said they need to double check everything, make backups, basically make sure nothing messes up the flow of information, especially as the race gets closer.
Wow, so those people in the tote booths were like athletes themselves,
Yeah.
racing against the clock.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then after the race, after all the excitement, that's when they analyze everything, making reports for the track managers. Like, what were the most popular bets? Were there any weird betting patterns? They use the data to see, like, the bigger picture of what happened that day.
Interesting. So they're in the details, but also looking at the bigger picture. They say the devil's in the details. But in this case, so are the profits. Did RoleCatcher mention anything about the people skill side of things? Because it can't be all ones and zeros all the time, right?
Oh, definitely not. When you start moving up, building relationships is super important. You're working with the tech vendors, coordinating with other departments like security and marketing. You even deal with the regulators who oversee the whole horse racing industry.
Wow. So you're not just a tech person, you're kind of like a diplomat too. You're at the center of everything. Right. And that's why knowing what's going on in the industry is so important. RoleCatcher talked about how a senior operator, they might be the one suggesting new technology or even new types of bets based on the data they're seeing, like how tech trends are playing out.
Now, that is interesting. So they're not just reacting to technology, they're shaping it. Did RoleCatcher mention any specific tech skills that are important for this job?
They did. And this is where it goes beyond your typical IT stuff. We're talking like network protocols, like TCP/IP, database stuff like SQL. Even knowing programming languages can be helpful, especially with all these tracks using fancy software for things like virtual racing and betting apps.
Wow, that's next level. So we're not just talking about fixing a tote board. You might be coding the next big thing in horse racing.
Exactly. It's that mix of solving problems and thinking ahead that makes this job unique.
Like a jockey, but for the tech world. Always looking for an edge. But, let's be real, all this tech talk can be a lot. How does RoleCatcher help someone actually get a job in this field?
That's where their platform really shines. They have this huge collection of interview questions. And not just general stuff either. We're talking over 120,000 questions, all about specific jobs and industries, including racetrack operators.
Oh, that's impressive. But it's one thing to have the questions. It's another to know how to answer them like a pro.
And they've got you covered there too. They have example answers, they tell you what hiring managers are looking for, and get this, they even have AI that gives you feedback.
Oh, wow.
You can record yourself answering a question,
Man.
and their system analyzes it and gives you personalized tips.
So it's like having a coach just for your career. That's amazing prep work. But let's switch gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the technical side. But what about the everyday stuff, like the good and the bad? What do role catchers say about that? So RoleCatcher tells you how to get the job, the skills you need, all that. But what about the day-to-day reality? Is this a job where you're like right there on the track feeling the energy? Or are you more behind the scenes in a control room somewhere?
It's probably a mix, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they definitely said it's not always glamorous. You're working long hours, a lot of times when everyone else is off having fun, like weekends, holidays, those big race days. And yeah, there's excitement being part of a big event. But it can be super stressful too. When the system's got to work and all those bets are coming in, there's no room for mistakes.
Yeah, I can imagine. You need the tech skills, but also got to be calm under pressure. Kind of like a jockey, but they're writing code instead of horses.
Uh-huh, right.
But speaking of the future, we've got online betting now, virtual races, all this new tech-changing things. Did RoleCatcher say how that affects this career in the long run?
Yeah, they did. And it actually sounds like a really good thing, like a big opportunity. Think about it. As more tracks use online stuff, they need people who get the whole tote system. But also cybersecurity, data, maybe even designing those betting apps.
So the job could change a lot, from managing a system at one track to overseeing a bunch of online platforms, maybe even global.
Exactly. And that's why RoleCatcher kept saying how important it is to keep learning new things. The tech's not slowing down. So these operators have to constantly improve their skills, stay ahead of the game. They even said some people end up working for the companies making this tech, like becoming consultants or even starting their own businesses.
Wow, from the track to tech startups. That's a career path I wouldn't have thought of.
All right.
But it shows how this job is really about solving problems, using what you know to make sure everything works, whether it's a tote board you can touch or a virtual race online.
I think that's a great point. It's that ability to adapt, to connect the old school horse racing world with the newest technology. That's going to be really valuable.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening to say the least. I had no idea there was so much happening behind the scenes. We went from data entry to virtual reality, all thanks to these racetrack operators. Who knew they were so important?
It really shows you how tech is changing everything, even those old school traditions. And if you've got the skills and you love horse racing, it seems like a really exciting time to get into this field.
I definitely agree with that. This has been awesome getting a look into this career. It's technical, exciting, challenging, and rewarding. For the deep dive, I'm your host, signing off. We'll be back next time to take another deep dive
Into a whole new part of the world around us.